Reminds me of Carl. It's so dapper.
I don't know what drugs you're smoking, love. Right, okay, then we're on now. We're well and truly on. Right.
Well,
I just wanted to do the monthly the 2 monthly reminder. Margaret, you haven't paid your money this month, so I just wanted
That's
to remind
it's
I just
it's in transit.
the weird thing is, right, it gets to the night when I'm going to mention that people have got to pay their money, and at the very last minute, Andy pays his money, right? Margaret's said to have paid her money.
Yeah.
Roger's already paid, right? Right. Anyone else, right, who's got to pay their £50 for the next 2 months, make sure it's in the bank account. It's done and dusted. I've said it. It'll be done just like that. I know. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your monies in advance for the next 2 months, and have a Merry Christmas to see you in the new year. Thank you very much. On that note, we're going to crack on, and those who have paid their money so far, thank you very much. Well, enough said, right? I just want to know if there's any other news other than that wonderful author. What's the name of that author again?
John Sugden.
Related to Molly Sugden.
S-U-G-D-E-N.
That's the one.
He's got a doctorate.
I hope he gets better.
Don't mention it to Claire, because she'll be straight over there.
She will.
Particularly if he's still married.
Yes. No, his wife's died, so no, he's...
Oh,
no,
right.
Oh,
So that's why you were talking to him.
Be careful now. Come on, have a tea. Oh, want a cake? Oh, Margaret, be very careful.
He's a very, very charming man.
Yes, that's the front.
Aren't they yours?
Oh, very careful.
You guys have lost me already. Right. Anything from you, Roger?
Well, there was something interesting last night, briefly, on Lindisfarne.
And
there's remains of the medieval castle, but they were trying to find the cemetery of the monastery. And they tried something, but the last I saw it, there might have been some remains of another part of the actual establishment that was wrecked by the Vikings. But what's happened since, I don't know. There was no date on it. Do you know anything about that? Things on Lindisfarne?
No, there's lots of things. Obviously, we've got an earlier site there dating, I think, to the 700s.
You've done
the
a lot
castle thing rings a bell. I'm not sure. The cemetery, that they're always looking for remains of the cemetery. I think it's done still by Earthwatch, actually.
The monastic cemetery. They found burials, but they think it's just the locals, others outside the monastery, perhaps a bit later on.
Yeah.
Anyway, there was no much
thanks,
about it.
Thanks for that, Roger. And obviously, you'll all know about the new city that's been found in Guatemala by LiDAR.
No,
it's in Mexico.
I thought it was in Guatemala.
No, they found one in Ecuador last year. In Mexico, it's the one they just announced today. Yeah. They may have found another one. Mayan.
Hang on a minute. I did have something not so many hours ago today. So I'm just gonna I'll read out what I've got here. It says, this is from Goff. No, archaeologists in Guatemala say they have found one of the oldest Mayan tombs ever discovered.
That's different. This is a Mayan city.
Yeah. Oh, Andy, stop! Look,
7,000 buildings.
Good grief!
Yeah.
That's nothing. When I was young, this were nothing but bloody houses.
It would seem that somebody's been doing a lot of LiDAR flying around that area, because they've found quite a lot.
Wasn't it an old LiDAR map? And they didn't see it the first time round.
That possibly. Yeah.
So they've been looking at the map again.
Yeah, because a lot of it was buried, and they just had to go by the shapes, didn't they? So because LiDAR, I thought when they said it was buried, and I thought, well, LiDAR doesn't pick up buried stuff. You'll get the lumps, but you won't. You won't get the actual underground stuff. So
no.
What does LiDAR show? Just the...
It tends to go through the trees, but it very accurately does the topography. So.
I see.
Yeah. It just basically any organic stuff above the ground it doesn't record, like trees. But it just does. Yeah, as Andy said, the topography. Yeah, he's correct.
Don't they call it ground penetrating LiDAR?
No, that's radar.
That's
radar.
radar.
That's something else. Yeah, that's radar. Yeah.
This is part of your geophysics suite, ma'am.
What? What have you been drinking today, Andy? Right, okay.
Booth's pizza.
Talking about Andy, right? Anything from you, Andy?
No, I was going to say that I saw that thing on the news about the Mayan town or city being found. But, yeah.
Oh well, I tell you what. As we're talking about it, after the questions, we'll go straight onto Google and we'll Google the two things. Right, that's what we'll do. Everybody's happy then. Well, you know, it does the arguments, right? Andy's not happy about a piddly little tomb in Guatemala, right? Which I am, right? And Andy just jumps in there with 7,000 buildings. Well, that's nothing, is it? You know what I mean?
No.
Yeah.
I get mixed up with the Incas, the Aztecs, and the Mayans.
Yeah, they all look the same.
Look, it's just too much. Well, okay, I can answer that. Just let's just get over this bit, right? And then we'll do it in a minute. Okay. Right. Anything from you, David?
No, thank you.
Good. Jeannie, baby?
I was going to talk about what Andy was talking about. Yeah.
You could talk about what Andy was talking about. We're going to talk about it in a minute anyway.
Yeah, jolly good.
And as I want to introduce, Judith's there, and actually you would never guess what her surname is Fraggle.
Fraggle Rock.
Yeah,
well, don't start him.
She did want it. No, I've already done the singing, Andy. We're not going to do that now. Right. Right. Okay. Judith, anything from you?
No, nothing from me. Thank you. I'd like to see the pictures from Guatemala.
Yeah.
Well, do you know what? Right. It's just like, people contact me when I'm having a shower and say, look, what's been found here? And I'm thinking, I'm trying to have a shower. Do you know what I mean? Right, okay. I will give you a little bit of an idea what we can do tonight before we do look at the Guatemala thing. You see what she did? She sided with me then, Andy.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah.
You see that?
Your phone
and Mexico.
Oh, damage is done now.
Right, okay, look, this is not Wednesday. We're not talking about me in the shower again. Andy's still he's still got counselling over that, right?
Oh, my suspenders are stuck. Oh.
No, stop. Right, stop. Right, let's be sensible. Right, okay. David's thinking I'll be a first. Right, okay. David's intrigued to meet me one day. He wants to see if I'm anything like. Yeah, we'll leave that bit. Right, okay. So what we're gonna do? If we type in what's the title of this? It's right. It's archaeologist. Right, Guatemala Mayan tomb. Right. Okay. Guatemala. That's not spelled like. Oh,
I have no idea how you spell that.
Hang on, we're going to it. It'll come up in a minute.
No,
it'll get it. There you go.
That's
Guatemala City.
No, Guatemalan tomb. Right, there we go. See, I got it straight away. See what I did there? Good. Right, archaeologists find treasure-filled 1,700-year-old Mayan tomb. Right, the lead researcher described the find as akin to the winning the lottery, the most amazing discovery ever made on this planet, ever. Right,
wow.
There it is.
Nice
look at that. It's amazing. Yeah, look at that stuff. You look at the look at the. Shut up, Rog. Did you say? What did you just say? Anyway, I thought you said something else. I'm sure. Right. Anyway, so is that what we should do? Is if we look at images, we might find some other stuff to do with that. You see, is that it? Oh God, I've lost it. I've lost the plot.
Somebody on a bike.
Shut up, Rog. Right, let's just see if we can guess something else. So this is the stuff they've been finding. Look at that. Great, Nick. It's like a jade head, jade mask. This one's from the Smithsonian. That's the one. Have you noticed how precise the dates are there? 1,700-year-old. Smack on the nail. Right, you like it? Right. Go. So basically, we got mollusk shells and a beautiful Mars there. A femur bone with a carving on it. Andy, when you finish with your femurs, right, you can have them carved.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. Donate your bones to be carved to charity.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah, Roger, there's nothing useful on you at all, but don't worry about it. When Roger actually went to donate bits of his body to charity, they actually gave him money not to come back.
Rusted away.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Good little earner there, Rog. Well done. Yeah.
Oh, say, well, you know, we're all different.
Shut up, Rog. Basically, they found loads of shells and stuff. It's really difficult to read this article because it's like a.
Stop whizzing up and down. We can see it.
Keep it still.
All right, look, I'm just trying to do my best. That's what Mum says.
So there's that jade relates to Chinese.
They look at that there. Look at those eyes looking at you.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's lush. Lush. The problem is when you're doing this online, you see, they want you to pay to be members of these things. But there's the jade mask there, and there's the carved bone. That one can't see much detail on it.
That's quite a small mask, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is. It is. It's telling me, Rog. Yeah, it's going to be a little person. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah, this is interesting. They said that the best thing about the Dial of Destiny, the Indiana Jones film that came out beginning of the year, which I went to see, right, was actually Harrison Ford. And I just thought, that goes without saying.
Yeah.
But look at these pots. Look at the way these pots have been found and made. So,
does he say I'm getting too old for this in it at all?
No,
you are
not really. But look at that little pot there. It's great.
That's nice. Yeah.
It is nice. Nice bit of detail.
Nice little spout. Mm.
Nice little spout.
Mm.
It reminds me. I'm a little teapot. Anyway, we'll just move on. Yeah. And that looks like it's a little sort of container with a lid on it.
It's a cooking pot.
Yeah, I know.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Put a boiled egg in that.
An ostrich egg.
Yeah.
Not that they have them there, but
yeah. So what we got to do now? We got to go on to the city now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what we got to do is, if you type in the keywords Mexico and LIDAR, we should come up with it straight away, right?
Yep.
Right, LIDAR. And no, Roger, I'm not typing in Carl in his suspenders.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So you would go. Which one, Andy? Which should we go for? Should we go for? It's up to you, Andy. You decide. Sky, BBC, or The Guardian.
Oh, BBC. Oh, no, yeah, BBC. Guardian will be a bit dull, won't it? But...
Right. Okay. There we go. Oh, accept. You got all that. PhD student finds lost city in Mexico jungle by accident.
How do you find it by accident? He's been looking, hasn't he?
Well,
it makes it sound better, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well,
but wrong.
Yeah. Well, yeah, cool.
Got enough of the BBC already.
How can you miss that? Oh, by the way, it's just hidden in trees.
That was what the BBC. I've just realised that's what they did. They showed images of what it would look like, not what it actually looks like, because it's all buried. So.
Oh right, yeah.
There are no images. Yeah,
you actually chose. You right anyway.
Yeah,
it don't look like this, but if we
try The Guardian. See if because somebody might have the LIDAR picture
images.
Where you can see it.
There
you go. Yeah, you see, I knew that all along.
Oh,
that's Guatemalan.
Wow.
What? We what about that's Guatemalan?
All the other pictures were Guatemalan pictures.
Yeah, well, I did say there was something in Guatemala, but no.
Yeah, no, that's a different one, though,
Hang
isn't
on a minute. There's a Guatemalan city that's been.
Oh, Andy, that doesn't count.
What?
7,000 buildings.
Right there, Andy, Roger, just shut up.
Where?
Right there's the plan.
All right.
There it is.
Well, we did well. He did well to spot that. There's not a
Yeah.
lot there, is there?
No,
No.
but he found it.
Yeah.
Somehow, amongst all of that, right, he found it.
Yeah.
Why is it those bright colours?
That's the different levels of land.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
this is
every
what-
few it does it every 2 centimeters. It used to be every 2
Yeah.
meters, but it's every 2 centimeters. So you can grade it in colors, so you can see the high ground and the low ground and that. It's just brilliant. You can see so much.
What they've done is enhanced the bits of the temple in black, so you can see all these little things on there, and those are the buildings.
So they've added all those colours later, I mean, or are they instantly?
No, the black
That's
ones. What
just-
they've done,
It's
they've
part of
enhanced the
it.
detail. Yeah, that's right.
You can change the angle of light to whatever you want to try and it will bring out so whatever.
Right,
Just-
Andy, we're going.
Too
Yeah,
So
technical.
how do we trick that to level the light different ways? Yeah.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
that's
So
not what it looks like now, but that's what
No.
it probably would do if they uncovered it.
Well, the rest of us.
After swapping matchets and binoculars for computer screens and laser mapping, a team of researchers have stumbled on a lost Mayan city of temple pyramids, plus a statue of Lloyd George, enclosed plazas, and I missed out last week, all of which had been hidden for centuries by the Mexican jungle.
How
So the
dare
biggest
they?
problem is when they find something like this, then people think, oh, it's there. For the longest time, our sample of the Mayan civilization was a couple of 100 square kilometers total. That sample was hard won by archaeologists who painstakingly walked over every square meter, hacking away at the vegetation with matchets to see if they were standing on a pile of rocks that might have been someone's home 1,500 years ago, or the lidars underneath. Andy, you should have gone with lidar in the first place, but no, you knew better, didn't you? LiDAR is a remote sensing technique. There you go, Margaret.
Yeah.
That uses a pulsed laser and other data obtained by flying over a site to generate three-dimensional images about the shape of surface characteristics. Oh, hang on a minute.
Oh, that looks good.
Oh, hang on a minute. Where's it gone?
That's a really nice graphic. Get it
Hang
back.
on,
Get
what's
it
going
back.
on? I want it back.
For goodness sake.
Oh no! Don't tell me they signed me out.
Just as you were getting to the good bit. Oh.
There.
Show more. Show more.
Just right there. So basically, the green stuff, right? Andy, and the lidars are stuff on the right. So what we do, right? That's there, but that's what's underneath it all.
Oh wow.
I think that's still brilliant to be able to see a city there.
Oh yes.
Hey, do you know what we're going to do, right? If I take a photograph of that now, right, and then we can zoom in.
All right.
I got the technology. I can do it, guys. Right, this is the image, right? So what we do, right? No, if we zoom in, right? Zoom in. But hey, just do it. Right. Just go away. Stop it. Right. Look at that. You see there?
Oh,
That is not, look at that. There's the canal there in the middle, right?
Okay.
Well, yeah, it's a canal. Yeah. So basically what we got temples there, right? And they're basically all the other bits and pieces. This is what we're looking at. And
but what they're saying is all the lumps that look like little hills are right there, right in the middle there. That's a temple. Right?
That is.
No, just below right there. That big rise. That big mound.
It's like a temple on it.
What?
Right in the middle
there?
with the white. Yeah, that one. That's a temple.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Really big one. You can see the steps going down above it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And also you've got some it looks like you've got some lidar walls in this area as well.
Yeah.
So it's
yeah, well that's it. That's why I say it. That I think they did really well to spot that. So,
hang on a minute, Andy. Andy, look at that there.
Yeah, all the lumps and bumps everywhere.
Hang on, hang on, get rid of that. If you look there, you can see there's a big precinct.
Yeah. Yeah.
What would you look for? Would you look for straight lines?
Not necessarily. Just basically when Yeah, the straight lines is a good one, but linear structures is
Yeah.
not a natural thing. So that linear
No,
Yeah,
that's what I
anything
mean.
not natural.
Yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of this is like piled up on the sides, so they're like little hills now over
Yeah.
the tops of pyramids and buildings and
Yeah.
things. So you're actually looking at a hill.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Which looks normal. So that's why I say I think. But you're right. You're right, Carl. There are little funny little linear things in them, and terracing there as well. So,
Oh, look at that.
yeah.
Oh, that's fairly clear, isn't it?
Yeah.
That down
The
on
one-
the bottom right.
Yeah, that's fairly clear.
But if I just looked at that now, I wouldn't know there were buildings there at all.
Oh, actually, there is something I can identify. At Palenque, you've got a structure like that, right? Which is basically like a rectangular building with steps, and it's quite sort of linear. So that's what that probably looks like.
There's loads of platforms on the right there as well, aren't there? As well, and terraced bits on the far right.
Exactly. So this is lidar, and the thing is with this lidar technology, and you know, you can see what Andy's completely correct in what he's saying. These look very out of sync, right? And the giveaway is basically that on the top.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
These little things on the top. That because if these were natural, they would be dome shaped, right?
Yeah.
If they were glacial, it'd be dome shaped. They wouldn't look like that. So that's cool.
Landing pads. Yeah, brilliant.
That is cool. So I'm glad we zoomed in on that. So there's a lot going on. And what the if as we've cheated the Guardian, right? So there it is there. That's what's there. And then you peel that back there. That's great graphics, isn't it?
Yeah, really like that.
Is it tricky to get to one day with jungle?
What's that, love?
Is it tricky to get to the point? Access the site.
I seem to remember it's either 15 miles or 15 minutes from a main road. It's very close to civilization. Well, you can see it on the left there. Those are new roads.
That's a road
bottom left.
There.
Yeah, that's a little village. So
hang on, I'll get rid of that a minute. Stop. We go that there, and we go there. So that's what we're talking about there.
Yeah,
that's
a modern village. Yeah.
Oh, to give people an idea of lidar and how lidar works. If we know that that's there on the left.
Yeah.
Right. So you can clearly see that the difference between the modern stuff and the old stuff is the modern stuff is clearly linear, right? The old stuff is disguised as linear, but it's sort of hidden and mutated and altered, right? So if we go back there, that if you start to look, we were talking about something that looked like a canal, which is not there, which is this thing over here, right?
Yeah.
That looks like a canal structure, but you can clearly see something linear from the trees, right? But on the ground, when you actually go back, you can see there's actually more to it. On the left there, depending if that's a modern or an old feature, but it's definitely something coming up as something quite substantial in the landscape.
Yes.
So if we go back, not everything in that. Oh, that's another point. That is another point. The point I just made. The lidars picking up everything. So whether that feature on the left is an old feature or a modern feature, it's still catching up the topographical makeup of the landscape. It's not necessarily all Mayan. It's a mixture of stuff, right? So go on, Andy.
I was going to say what's Mexico City was built on water, wasn't it originally?
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
With a lot of canals, but that wasn't Mayan, was it? Or was it? I can't remember. It was Mayan or Aztec.
Aztec.
Yeah.
It was Aztec.
So that's later, but that could be an Aztec canal, of course.
Could be. So it occurred to anthropologists that others may already have mapped the area for different reasons. So obviously, when they go into it, they're thinking that somebody else has found these things and they haven't.
Good find.
So what if a LiDAR survey of this area already existed? He was in luck in 2013. A forest monitoring project had undertaken a detailed LiDAR survey. So in other words, the work had been done, but nobody had actually looked at it for archaeology. And then they found the archaeology within the landscape. Oh, and yeah. Now that's a more enhanced thing. So that's basically what we've been looking at.
Yeah.
So you can clearly see that they've already identified features on that. And the ball court idea is a typical sort of Mayan concept. So it's talking about the dates for the Maya. The Maya were big around, what are dates have we got here? The Mayan civilization was massive around at places like Palenque about 600, 700 AD, 600, 700 years, 600 AD 700. That's when the Mayan civilization was huge, right? But talking about a timeline, I can basically sketch out a timeline from what I can remember. You can clearly see there's lots of houses on this, and the point I just made there about modern stuff. So the modern stuff is there, and these are the old houses. So basically, the older houses are going to be less distinct, as opposed to modern houses, which are clearly distinct on the bottom right-hand corner. But LiDAR is the place that we're going in archaeology. And the one thing about LiDAR is it gives a sense of I'm just scrolling through this a minute. LiDAR itself gives a sense of a landscape that is a developed landscape, and it's obviously it's not a new technique, but it's come on the back of aerial photography. So aerial photography photographs what's there. LiDAR just cuts through the organic, and you just get the basic stuff that's there on the surface. It cuts away the trees basically. And this is giving you an idea of the landscape, which makes no real sense to me, but obviously it's talking about a lot more within the landscape than that meets the eye. And so this is great stuff. I'm sure you guys can find more. And he's talking about there were cities that were sprawling agricultural patchworks and hyper dense. So what we're talking about, that you've got the civilized landscape with waterways, with agricultural terraces, with ball courts, with temples, and this is like quite a diverse world, as it's saying. They're given the environment and the social challenges we're facing from rapid population growth, it can only help to study ancient cities and expand our view of what urban living can look like or did look like. So what they're saying is they're looking at the past for answers to try and understand how we should be living today. But unfortunately, key things that we haven't got in Western society, right, is sewage. These people could deal with sewage. They could also deal with their civilized landscape. We're still working on a Victorian method of dealing with sewage. And I know we've talked about this, but sewage is a key element within the landscape. But these people are clearly able to deal with the sewage within their landscape, the diverse landscape. It's all about canals, waterways. It's all about reutilizing the landscape, having roadways, plazas. And this is the civilization. There you go. It's talking about it there. It's talking about LiDAR to uncover tens of thousands of previously undetected Maya houses, buildings, defense works. Defense works are not just defensive against people, it's defensive against the environments as well, flooding. And also the one thing about these people is they understood the power of water. Because if you've got lots of canals and lots of places that water can actually drain away, right, you've got a more sustainable landscape. Whereas today, in great cities like London, cities like New York, Rio de Janeiro, Paris, most of our cities are based within waterways that are congested and choked, right? And they're very much easily prone to flooding. But these types of situations, and studying this world, there you go, it's saying everything that I'm telling you. But the discoveries, which include industrial sites, agricultural fields, irrigation channels, right? And obviously they're understanding this. Oh, there we go. The study estimated that 10 million people may have lived within the Mayan lowlands, meaning that huge scale food production may have been needed. But the way they did that huge scale food production, right, is that they did it around them. Their food was around them. They picked their food. Their food was accessible for everybody, right? And I'm gonna. It says there that the Mayan civilization lasted to AD 900. That's not exactly the case. The Mayan civilization continued all the way through to the conquistadors, and we're looking at when Cortez invaded the Aztec Empire and Montezuma in the 1520s, 1521, I think it was, when they first met. The Mayan actually sided, what was left of the Mayan actually sided with the conquistadors, leading to the downfall of the Aztecs. So the Mayan were still within the society. They were a much smaller part of society, but again, their civilization continued. So when people talk about the collapse of Mayan civilization, it's not exactly true, right? Because they were able to sustain this rich landscape, right? And one thing I would not like to mention is the other question. From what I can remember, right, this is coming straight out of my head, right, to give you an idea of these civilizations, right? So if we go to a whiteboard and if we type in, so basically early on you've got people like the Olmecs. The Olmecs are people that produce big stones and big statuary, and then you've got the Zapotecs, and the Zapotecs. These were people roughly around the period of the birth of Christ, right? The Olmecs, the Zapotecs, and these, I think it was the Zapotecs or the Toltecs. Not sure which one it was, but the Zapotecs and the Toltecs had a society that was actually more democratic than ours today. They had a sense of society where the rulership could be replaced, and if they weren't doing a good job, and they would have regular elections, more regular and more democratic than our elections today. So these are the early civilizations, and then later on, as we know, then you've got, for example, the Maya. Right, the Maya itself were a civilization that hugely rose, as you know. But the Maya itself, whatever date you want to give for the Maya, right, they did not disappear. Civilizations that did disappear were people like the Nazca Indians, right? They disappeared 1,000 years ago. But the Maya itself were the Aztec were like further north. The Aztec were the likes of Mexico, right? The Maya were a little bit sort of Mexico, Guatemala. The Zapotecs, the Olmecs, and all the rest of it were more like Guatemala, that type of area. So what it is, we think that the Aztecs were a little bit more up themselves compared to the Maya. They were a little bit more brutal people, and the Maya themselves. You've got me started. I wish, yeah, it's all coming back to me now. The Aztecs themselves, finally, our beautiful Aztecs. The Aztec civilization had the shortest civilization, really, of all of them, right? So we can think basically of the Aztecs starting to come into their own roughly around sometime after the 1400s, right? We've actually got precise dates, right? So we've got the 1400s, and they're up until the 1422, 1421 mark, right? Actually, the dates are actually more acute than this, because what we have is roughly by the latter part of, say, the 1470s, 1480s, right? This is when the Aztecs started to unify the people. You can see there's actually quite a small time frame there. What's very interesting is further north, obviously from Mexico, you've got Texas, but if you go further north, you've got New Mexico. you've got the four states: New Mexico, Arizona. Help me out on this. But there's 4 states that have a border there, right? And then you've got the Pueblo people, right? And it's so we think that as the Pueblo people their civilizations are slowly collapsing, sometime in this period, in the late 1450s, coming to this stage, we think that was an exodus of people south. That's not exactly really true what I'm saying, but there was some tension which rose to the Aztecs becoming a great civilization, but they were only great civilization for a short period of time. So and they were wiped out due to them being too big and too sort of I don't know, over controlling and overbearing on society. So what I need to do, I need to find out where I am, and okay, right, stop share. Cool. So there we go. Right, thanks for joining the lecture today. I'll see you all next week. Right, so what we need to do now is I want us to go and try to hone in on last week. Right, so I know a few of you were away last week, and what I want to do is I want to do some of those comparisons between Roman civilization and Iron Age civilization, and what we did last week. I wanted to look at some of the Roman stuff that we know of from the site at Scatness, right? And we got to it last week, and I said we're going to stop, because what I want to do then is I want to do some of the access analysis stuff, and then I'm going to keep repeating the term, why did people in Iron Age Scotland build brocks? Why did they build them so tall? Right. I'm going to look at a few images of Musa, and I'm going to say why, and why. And this is a question that developed a few weeks ago, and it was like, what is the point of building these huge structures? Because they're huge, and no one else is doing them in Britain. Right, and it's not exactly we're finding loads of evidence of people dying. We're not going to answer that question yet. So what we're going to do, I'm going to show you an image, and I'm going to say, David, why? And David's going to say this, and then I'm going to show Andy, and then we're going to try and come to some consensus. Right, it's very important when we do look at, say, Musa itself as a topic that we're going to do, that we can actually bear out some kind of opinion what these buildings are for, rather than me just saying, look at this big tall building, what do you think? I want you to come to your own conclusion before I actually have a proper talk on Musa, right? So those are basically 3 elements of tonight. So let's just go there now, and we're going to there, and let's just go Baldric, my turkey. Right, so I think the best thing to do, right, so that stuff there, and what we've got is right, yeah, let's look at some of this cultural stuff. Right, now let's go back to Scatness on the lower part of the on the lower part of the Shetland Lower Peninsula. Right, we don't need to show any maps now. We don't need to know any of that. But I think one of the things is that, again, this huge structure, this huge broch, it's overpowering. Right, even over this site, right, at Scatness, it's not as tall as Musa. Why does it need to be so big? Why? Again, we're not discussing that now. But right, you're looking at an image like this, and then on the back of this image, roughly, if you want to think about a date of the birth of Christ, and there's somewhere around AD 100, this site seems to have hit Roman civilization, or Roman civilization has hit this. I would probably say it's the other one. that this has hit Roman civilization, and because it stands out, it's there, and we've got lots of bits of evidence. So I've got a little plan, and I'm going to say this is a little bit of a plan of some of the buildings in the village where we've got Roman material, right? And it's like thinking, why have we got Roman material? You know, over 100 miles away from the northern tip of Scotland, and you're thinking, right, okay, why? And again, we're not going to answer that question, but it's trying to gleam and go deep and go deeper and use our minds to think. So we're going to look at some we're going to look at some artifactual evidence and go deeper. So there's stuff that we've seen now. Some of it, most of it, you've already seen, but I want to go deeper, right? So again, we showed you this. These are bits of glass. Now, they found lots of bits of glass at Scatness, and the question is this glass made locally? The answer is no. Right? Okay, but could they have then collected their bits of glass together and made new glass vessels? And the answer is yes. So lots of the glass that we're actually seeing found at Scatness is not from Scatness. But then again, it doesn't mean to say that they weren't able to create their own glass items, and that's a very important thing. Actually, you can melt glass, right? And you can use the existing molds for iron and bronze to actually make objects with the glass. Glass, melt it, you make objects with it, right? It might be crude, but it's doable. And again, bits of glass lying around, surely these people picked this stuff up and did things with it, right? And again, these are Roman items, these are Roman cultural items which have been found at this site, and they would have been complete ones, because they would have been because you're not going to get little bits of glass that somebody's collected 600 miles away, or 700, 800 or 1,000 miles away, and take it to this site, and then sort of, these were complete items, basically. That's what I'm saying. So we know what this looks like, or we got an idea what this looks like from another image that we're going to see in a few moments. But again, it's that what is the bit of the story that we're not getting, right? And the reason why I'm making a little bit of a fuss over this is that we do look at a Roman site in the south, right? That site at the Ditches, which is in Gloucestershire, right? That sort of bit of comparison with a proper Roman site and this site, which is not Roman, which is Iron Age in Shetland. And the one thing in my books that I've written is about blue beads. Now, I've mentioned blue beads. One of the things that I've come across in my own research is that you do find blue beads on Roman era sites. And what have you found at Scatness? Blue beads, right? Bits of broken bits of blue beads. And the only place that blue beads are coming from is thousands of miles away in Egypt, right? So these blue beads have somehow ended up, because of the ochre in the blue beads, like lapis lazuli, these are not easily sort of compound ochres, minerals that you can actually grind down in the northern hemisphere, right? It's latterly from the likes of the Holy Land. So obviously you've got these weird objects, and what I've got is we've got text that I'm going to show on the screen. I'm going to read it word for word, so that you know what I'm reading and what I'm telling you from a professional point of view. Again, what is this big fuss with this Roman stuff at Scatness? Why am I making such a fuss of it? Because most archaeologists don't recognize this stuff exists, because it's like, oh, it's just found there somehow, and that's it. Well, it's a bit odd that there's quite a bit of it that's been found at Scatness, like there's lots of evidence of Roman material being found at lots of Roman sites in Orkney, even the site at Minehow, which I handled this material, right, which is a site that's now closed down. on mainland Orkney. Again, we showed you this, and a fragment of decorated glass. Now, this is a rim of decorated glass, and obviously, this is the point is it's 2-pointer, right? We know that Roman era Britain, hundreds of miles south, away from Shetland, we know we've got sites where they recycled glass from objects that's come over from the continent. They must have been blowing glass in Britain in the Roman era, AD 100, right? But we don't have much evidence of it. But we do find that there are recycled glass. We do find that there are items made from recycled glass across Britain, right? So there's no reason why they couldn't have done this type of recycling. They had the technology to do it at Scatness. There's no reason. It's just trying to put all these little bits together. So we know this was part of another bowl. This was part of another object that happened to end up at this Iron Age era site at Scatness. Again, it's decorated. It's another type of technology, but again, these people were able to access this sense of technology. And again, this type of soda type glass ware, which is going to obviously the colorant there as well. These people didn't have. We're not looking at translucent glass. We're looking at transparent glass. Translucent glass might be recycled glass, but this is transparent glass. So it's probably primary glass, where that could be secondary glass, where that is primary glass because it's that beautiful blue, right? What we do find is that there's loads of this blue glass that's been excavated in Israel, and you can occasionally go into shops and it basically says, do you want earrings made of Roman blue glass? You can actually get earrings made of proper original Roman blue glass that's been stockpiled from other objects which the Romans were meant to recycle and they didn't. You can buy that stuff today, right? It's quite odd. And again, multicolored bangle fragments. Now, again, they would have had the technology to do this, but in all intents and purposes, this is glass that's been brought from somewhere else. Now, again, asking the question, why? Why are these people so much into Roman cultured ways, right? Or you could say that the people of Scatness are very cultured themselves. It's akin to the Coca-Cola craze, right? For example, when the one of the things that the Viet Cong really liked when they were capturing the embassies and airports that had formerly been looked after by the American army in Vietnam was the Coca-Cola machines, right? Coca-Cola bottles. They loved that, right? But the Americans were their enemy. The point I'm trying to make there is that the tags and brands of civilization can definitely be seen at Scatness, and these people have got access to it. And glass is not the type of thing that you can pick up from a looted Roman villa hundreds of miles south and end up in Shetland. It just wouldn't last. It just wouldn't get there, right? So these objects have been deliberately moved around. They've been deliberately traded by primary traders, right? So if you've got a boat and you've got glass that you bring in from the mainland in Venice, or maybe Aberdeen, or maybe there's a place in Caithness North as well, and somehow you've got to pass Orkney first, right? You trade, and then you've got Shetland. These are trade objects, not just things that you've just come across lying around on the floor somewhere, right? And again, a bangle made of glass. These are not things that bangle made of glass, multicolored. bangle made of glass. Again, that technology. Again, these objects moving around. Again, from the south to the north. And brandishing something that is hitherto a point that archaeologists don't like to discuss. I'm discussing it, and so do the archaeologists who excavated the Scatness. That's the big difference. Finding a site that you can actually try to understand the Iron Age and the Roman era together in a location that you would not really think that you're going to find Roman material, and you do. And more than one or two objects of it, because this stuff is more than one or two objects. Another one of those multicolored bangles, right? So obviously it's more sense of movement of technology and something that these people would never have seen. So these people are seeing these glass objects rather than the hard metal objects, which they've got as well. And what is being said? What is the story? What is the scene? The scene is that it's there, and it's also thinking that. Hang on, just move on to where's that image? Hang on, where's that image? I think did I get that bowl earlier on? Hang on a minute. Where's that bowl? I'm sure I copied the bowl in. Right. If not, I could. Oh, right. Okay. So, I just gotta go straight onto this because I don't know where the bowl's gone. But if we go to, let's just get something to move your minds, right? Roman glass, a bowl, right? And when we say this bowl, what I'm gonna say straight away is they had objects like this at Scatness, right? They had them at Scatness. You know, this type of technology, they had this stuff at Scatness. I know lots of this is reconstructed stuff, but what are they doing at Scatness? You know, what is this stuff doing at Scatness? But it is actually there. You know, you can imagine those two objects are being found at Scatness, right? Don't need to say any more than that. And you're thinking, oh, how are they there? Why are they there? They're not accidentally there. They're there for a reason. It's saying that the people of Shetland have got links that are far deeper than we give these people credit for. It's just not a building with houses and then a building that I've said they've got this advanced technology. They're able to make advanced things in Shetland, right? The difference between Shetland and Orkney, by the time you get to the 600s, there was some kind of catastrophic disaster on Orkney that their Iron Age had completely gone. Any links with anybody else had completely gone. And there was some kind of disease and things altered in Orkney. But the story is very, very different in Shetland. There's another story to be told. There's another player in the scene of history that's bearing itself out on the stage. And then who jumps into the stage is finding objects like this. This is the fibula brooch, which is typically a Roman object. And guess what? They are able to make this type of object, right? They're able to make this type of object that's at this site of Scatness, right? So not only are we looking at glass objects and we're trying to work out, you know, what's the glass stuff doing there, right? They could have made this. They didn't make this themselves, but they could have made it themselves, right? That's the point. That is the point, right? Because they were able to make objects like this because they've got objects like this, which is a penannular brooch, which basically a penannular brooch is a circular brooch with a pin across it, an open circular brooch with a pin across it, and that would have been used as a club. We found other evidence of more than one of these at the site. And yes, even though the design might be the same as designs in the south, right? But it's the same designs that they could have made here. And it does open the question as well. And this is quite a scary question. How many objects in Roman era Britain could have actually been made in Shetland or Orkney? Nobody's asking that question. Because what we do, we think of a one-way traffic. We basically say, we find these things and we say, these objects obviously come from the south because they're like objects in the south. But the difference is with Scatness, we've got the molds of similar objects like this, which they are capable of making at Scatness, right? So, and I mean, Andy knows what I'm talking about, right? When you look in the Neolithic period, and all you guys probably know what I'm talking about. When you look in the Neolithic period, you start to think Orkney, Shetland, more Orkney, that you've got first types of pottery spreading from the north to the south. You've got standing stone circles, burial traditions from Orkney, right? All these other different things, all the different types of technology that are coming from the north to the south, right? And strangely enough, I'm going to say it, that Anna Nurbe archaeologists working, for Heinrich Himmler from the 1st of July 1935, right, said that civilization in Germany came from the north, right? I'm not saying people came over for Orkney and Shetland, and I'm saying that most of the stuff that the Anna Nurbe stood for was not right, right? But they said that there's something not right about the map of how we understand history in Europe, right? It must have come from the north. And then suddenly you get all this technology, all these technological leaps happening in Orkney, and if not, also in Shetland, right? And the thing is, what we're not saying, I'm not going to say this, right, because it's totally untrue. If somebody turned around and said, actually, what it was, people from the south went up to Shetland, right, and Orkney, right, and they gave them the technology to be able to make these things, right? I'm saying that that's completely false, right? These people are so advanced with their technology, even before Roman era civilization even hits the shoes of the south coast, right? These people inevitably develop this technology themselves. So why can't they have spread their technology south rather than just north? We're not getting that with glass, but then again, there's questions to be answered with that. Could they have found and invented glass themselves? I can't answer that question either. But they were able to melt iron ore. They were able to make copper and bronze, and we've got evidence of zinc and tin and all these things going on at the site. Glass melts at a much lower temperature. I think we can get molten glass at about 900 degrees C or somewhere along there, or even a little bit below that as well. Let's go on to something else. Right, again, this Trump approach, typical Roman object, typical sort of Roman-looking object, and there it is. You've got the spring there. That's the spring, but we know that they're able to. That we know that there's other spring-like objects that they are able to do this at the site, right? And again, are they being influenced? This is a Roman object from the south, but they could have produced these themselves as well. And also, could this have been produced at the site? It's not really been tested yet either. The metal in this object hasn't been tested. The presumption that everything at the site that they found that looks locally made, is locally made. And the stuff that doesn't look like it's locally made can't have been locally made because it looks like it's been made somewhere else. That might be completely the wrong way of looking at things. Just because it looks Roman doesn't mean to say it wasn't made here. And I actually thought this was absolutely fascinating. I didn't make a fuss of this at all. But when I played a part on a film that you'll be seeing in a cinema as a sheep shearer in the near future, right? These are exactly the same shears that I actually used, but this is actually a pair of shears that was actually found at our site at Scatness. These could have actually been made at Scatness. The interesting thing is, these are exactly the same shears that the Romans are using 700 miles away in southern England, right? But the same design is found on Shetland, Orkney, examples found at Mus Farm, which date to 1000 years BC. And the other thing to be said is, when we find objects like this, I'm the first to turn around and say it's a style of an object, sheep shears, that has been used for thousands of years, right? And they're using them all over Europe, right? Now, maybe these people came up with the idea of designing these shears themselves. It's a simple piece of metal, right? And it is very effective, right? And again, it's one thing that we did earlier on. We were looking at the development of temples. Well, we just mentioned it a little bit. Just mentioned the Mayan temples, for example. And then the Aztecs developed similar temples to the Mayan, right? I know that one would have influenced the other, but we see this exact temple design site in the Indus Valley, and we see it the border between Iran and India. Then what we've got is the Euphrates civilization, the Tigris, and so on, and we've got the what I'm trying to get at is that people did similar things in different parts of the world, right? It doesn't mean to say that they're being influenced by anybody else. That's the point I'm trying to make at Scatness, right? Is it all about this Roman influence, or is it the other way around, right? You've got to be very careful to jump in and say, oh, that those people must have influenced those people, right? And again, I showed you this, the double linked chain, and this is not a jump of imagination. That these chain link were exactly the same chain link principle that would have been available in the medieval period. We know that we know that the Romans actually had chain link, right? A chain link armor, but this is a chain link belt, and this dates to nearly 2000 years ago. And all of these little links are actually a chain that these people devised and manufactured at the site. And again, this is not somebody coming from the south and saying, right, this is what we do, why don't you do it? It's these people saying, we're already doing it. Well, they're already bloody doing it, because the Romans ain't even in Britain when they're making these things in the first place. So that is exactly the point. That is what we're saying. We're talking about trying to not reinvent the wheel, but we're trying to challenge a false narrative. When this is, do you know when I made a chain link? I've actually got it on the wall, right? I started making a chain link shirt exactly the same way as this, but I used metal washers. In fact, these look like metal washers, but look at it. It's nothing different. You tell you what, you can go in Juicens and buy a pack of these, right? But this is 2000 years old. And it might look too simple. It might like thinking, well, why is he on about it? It's just like, yeah, just get over it. But I'm not going to get over it, because what we're trying to say is that we're we're telling you that they had the capability, the broadcasting of their meaning within this societal landscape. And I think at that stage, right, because we got back to the temple, I think what we'll do, we'll take a break, and what I don't want to talk about. Hang on, what did I say about the Musa thing? Yeah, what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you an image of about the Musa thing, right? I don't want us to talk about it in the break, right? I mean, you two all have a look at the tower of all look at the Tower of Musa, right? And I want you to mull in your heads, right? So at the end tonight, we'll all look at the tower at Musa and say, right, there were hundreds of these across Scotland. Why did they build them? And I want all of you to come up with something different, right? So if we go to, okay, that's at its highest point is 13 meters high, 12 meters high, right? Why? Okay, why do you need something like this on an island in the middle of friggin' nowhere, right? With a village around it? It just, okay, I'm going to influence this, and I want you to challenge me and say, it makes no sense. I want you to make sense of it. But we're not going to discuss that now in the break. What I want to do is discuss anything that we've already done. Right, so there we go. Go for it. And right, Drina, anything you want to say, doll?
No, I don't think so. Not at the moment. No.
And what about you, my old cobber, Rob? Rog? I'll do. Rog?
What? No.
What?
Okay. Fine, carry on. I'm happy.
It's like having a conversation with a melon sometimes. Right, Margaret.
Have we do we know, were they trading with the Romans? Do we know that? Or were they making the glass themselves? Or were they getting the glass
Well,
from
the
Romans?
glass is the thing that they're obviously bringing in, right? But there's no reason why they couldn't have melted this glass down and made their own objects, like in other bits of Roman era Britain. We've got evidence. I think there was a whole Time Team episode dedicated to this, where there was where they had a stretch of Roman road, and that's where they found bits of broken glass and obviously recycling and making objects with it, right? Now, other than the glass, the blue glass, the lapis lazuli type glass from northern Egypt, Israel, right? That's clearly from there, right? The other glass objects are objects that have been traded all the way to Shetland. But can you see the point I'm trying to make? If you've got a number of glass objects, they're not accidentally there. I know we've all nicked a pint glass from outside our local pub and taken it home, right? But there's that, and having that pint glass in your boat as you're raiding somewhere, and you soon see that it's not going to last by the time you get to Shetland. So the point is, the only way that these objects could have got there is peaceably, right, through trade. However, I'm also turning it on its head and saying all the stuff that we're seeing there, they were capable of making themselves anyway.
Well, if they were trading with the Romans, what did they give to the Romans?
Yeah, I've already said it. They were able to compete with the Romans and make the same metal objects that the Romans made.
Right. Okay.
That's the point. That is the point. The point is, whenever we're as archaeologists, right, we find things and we always presume, well, that's wrong. We find things, and most of the time, right, we presume that what we're seeing is what the books tell us, right? So obviously, fibula brooch, that must have been designed by a Roman craftsman in a mold down the road. But these people have got molds. These people got they could make these things.
Okay.
Why couldn't they have?
I know the Romans got to Inverness. Did they get beyond there? Was that
as a movement of people?
Mm.
The evidence is saying that they did actually manage to possibly get all the way to north of Caithness and start to go around the other side.
Okay.
There is evidence that there's weird that there's if you start reading the textbooks, it says that there was a small army group of maybe 1,000 soldiers and whatever. They just kept marching around the coast, and every night that they stopped, they built a fort, and then they used that as a supply base to keep things supplied as they moved around, and they were supplied by the Roman Navy as well, right? So we've got evidence of that, and we're thinking, well, okay. And then when again, probably not the best question to ask me, but because I go on about it. One of the islands in the archipelago has actually got a field called Agricola's Field, and we're thinking, why? Don't make sense, right? And you look at some weird place names in Orkney, and they just don't make sense, right? What I am saying is that there's every reason to be able to trade their material that the Romans were also trading. Remember, it's a competitive market. Look at China today. China can make things that we can make, but they can make them cheaper than we can because they don't have the overheads that we do, right? So if you've got all and the other thing as well is there's so many molds that they found at Scatness, right? And we don't find the objects that were associated with those molds. So who ended up with that material? You see?
Yeah. But
anything from you, David?
No.
And what Andy's obviously gone somewhere else, and I'm gonna have a camp coffee in a moment, right? As you know, I'm totally camp, right? There's nothing wrong with being camp. It's all good, right? Okay, Judith.
No, nothing from me, thank you.
Right, okay. So Judith, if you do your hair like a Fraggle when you come to my live shows, right? Oh, that'll be so good.
It needs doing. I'm having it done on Thursday. It'll look completely different.
If you have like the little curly bits of hair like Princess Leia, and they're red, I can play with them. I don't think your husband cares, does he? Right, okay.
He's watching his sci-fi.
Oh, he's not watching The Walking Dead, is he? Right, okay. Then.
No, I couldn't bear that. Oh, Carl broke my heart. I couldn't watch it after that.
Oh yeah, good old Carl. Right.
Oh, that was
and look at that. Can you see our production props?
Yeah.
So no, these things are not in our head. So yeah, okay then. So what we're gonna do now, we're gonna have Andy, we're gonna say anything you want to say, Andy. He's not talking to us now.
I had the microphone off. I can get it to come back on again. No, I find this whole concept of who did what first fascinating, and dating wise, and the stuff they're finding up there would suggest that Orkney did, but that's totally against what everybody else thinks, or the traditional way of thinking, I should say. And it's great.
Yeah, exactly. You're dead. You're completely correct. It's like it's like, why not? Let's go back to the book, right? They've in the book, right? You've got these metal objects, right? That they're producing, right?
Yeah.
But they clearly look like loops.
Yeah.
That you could use as tent pegs, right? Now the Romans had wooden tent pegs.
Yeah.
But these people had the ability to make metal tent pegs, right? So what does that tell you?
That they're more advanced.
Oh, Andy, don't be so silly. It's a bit like
couldn't be more advanced than the Romans. Silly on me, yes.
it's a bit like when we talk about the Second World War, and we'll end on this point. The Germans were said to be the most mechanized, most advanced army in the Second World War, but they used tens of thousands of horses on the Eastern Front. In fact, to move everything, the Germans used horses rather than vehicles, right? Yeah. And you start to think, hang on a minute, right? If you turn that around and you look at the point I've just mentioned, right? The Romans used tent pegs, the metaphor, the equivalent of the German horses, right? When the enemy is a completely mechanized army, right? I.e. the Allies, right? These people on Orkney have got metal pegs, right? So just because you've got one civilization that looks more powerful than the other, when you start to look at it, it doesn't necessarily mean to say it is. Roman civilization has left more of a mark on our land. However, what are the tallest archaeological structures standing in Britain before 1,000 years AD, right? And the tallest structures standing in Britain surviving, which are the tallest above anything, are these brocks in Scotland, built by a backwards prehistoric people who couldn't rub two pennies together. But their archaeology outplays any of the Roman stuff by far. There is not a single Roman structure in Britain that stands. Well, like there's some of the walls.
That lighthouse.
Yeah, but I'm gonna. You mentioned that before, but I don't. The lighthouse. That's only one. Everything else, even the walls of the forts, are not more than 8 and 9 meters tall. Right. This rocket Mouser outpans. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to look at the height. You are right about that, right? Okay, the height of Dover. We're gonna see if, right, Roman lighthouse. I want to see how tall that is. I should know the answer, and maybe, right? Actually, right. Do you want the answer?
Go on then.
The Broch of Musa is between 50 centimeters and 1 meter higher than the Dover Castle Pharos. It says that the Roman fabric stands at 12.5 meters. It was raised in the medieval period up to 15.8 meters, but that's a medieval period. The Roman fabric is no more than 12.5 meters, where the Broch of Musa could be up to 50 centimeters or a meter higher than the Roman Pharos at Dover. So in fact, what I've just said is completely correct.
Were they all more or less the same height, these brochs?
Yes. Well, no. The big ones were pretty tall. I think we've got maybe 15 meters tall, these ones.
Look at in our library. Can you see it?
You got a book on the Broch of Musa.
Well, it's
no.
Yeah. Yeah. Guide to Prehistoric Scotland. So there's a whole section about the brochs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
On this note,
600 of them.
And those are the ones we know about.
Yeah.
So the big question now is, right? The big question now is
why?
Why? No, we're not doing that yet. The big question is, were the brocks at their full height 15 meters? Taller than anything that the Romans produced in Roman Britain? And the answer is probably no. Because it is likely that the vaulting that some of the Roman sites may have been 15, 20 meters tall. But the survival rate of the brocks is taller than the lighthouse at Dover. Anyway, let's have a break.
Okay.
Wow.
Shut up, Rog. Nobody's interested in anything you've got to say, Rog. Right, you get a life. Anyway, I gotta take a break. I'm terrible to Rog, you know. Nobody stands up for him. That's the thing. I'll be back.
Andy, did they ever get that boat finished?
It's still being restored. I'm just trying to think how far it's got. I'm not sure whether they've put the deck on it or not yet.
Right.
It's not far off. It's
right.
I think they're hoping to get it back in the spring of next year, so sort of March, April time, providing we've got enough money.
Right.
So it's gone up a lot. So because I mean materials and just everything.
There's a group of people own it.
Sorry?
You a group of people own it?
Yeah, not a very big one, unfortunately. We're applying for more grants to see if we can get the extra. We're about 30,000 short at the moment. One of the group has said that they will cover it if necessary, but I'd rather it was actually obtained through donations and grants and stuff instead. But we'll have to see, and we've got to work out how we're going to moor it and where we're going to put it in the winter as well. Yeah. So, but it's looking very nice. But, the hull's complete. We've got to put an engine in it yet as well, and the boatyard don't want to put an engine in it because it was originally designed not to have one, so it's going to have to be off-centered, which will create drag and unbalance it. But we don't really have a lot of choice. They're saying, oh, you could sling an outboard on a kind of fixing on the side. I'm thinking, no, we can't. We can't do that.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to swing a sort of 10 horsepower engine out on the side when you need it.
Right.
That's just not practical. But we shall see. But it's going to be lovely. It's going to be really beautiful when it's done.
You ever had a boat of your own, Andy?
I've got one on my lawn.
No, I mean one that you can sleep aboard.
Oh no, never had one that. I've only ever been in dinghies and things and that. So
you've never fancied having a boat?
Yes and no. I mean, they're not cheap, so I haven't really got the money. I did wonder when we had to sort out buying this place, whether we should just buy a big boat and just sail off and enjoy ourselves, But
are you where you are now permanently then?
For now, yeah. Well, kind of. We're in the middle of negotiating buying it. So
right. Oh, good.
Just had a survey around this morning.
Gosh.
It was very happy. He's the one from our mortgage lender.
Yeah.
And there's a common problem these days is that if people are asking more than the mortgage companies say they're worth, and you get a discrepancy. And he's laughing. He said, "No, I can't see any problem with this." He said, "I think you'll be all right with this. My report will go through, and that won't hold you up without it," because he obviously can't say much. I gave him a nice cup of coffee and got chatting with him, you see, to try and find out information.
Well, you've been there for quite a while, haven't you?
About 12 years now.
Yeah.
A lot longer, like about 10 years longer than we anticipated.
Yeah.
We kind of got stuck because we couldn't move.
I know.
We couldn't get a mortgage, so it was a bit difficult. I mean, we're having to sell the flat in London to do it now. That was my pension pot. So
yeah.
So as long as that goes through in time, we'll be all right.
Well, Joyce across the road has finally moved. She's just gone today.
Has she? Oh,
yeah.
Right. Where's she gone? She's
gone to Ashley Court.
Oh, has she? Oh, okay, that's not far away. We'll still see her around then. I like Joyce.
She's a bit dour.
Yeah, her husband was a Coast Guard.
I know.
Lovely guy, really nice guy. Every time we used to come home, I may have already told you this, but every time we used to come home to Arnside to visit my mum or my dad or whatever, we'd go for a walk up the Knot and we'd always see Tom up there. He must have gone up there every day. Really lovely guy.
No, I get on all right with Joyce, but she's a very straight talking.
Oh yeah, yeah. No messing.
But the headmaster from Dunham School, I think it is, has moved in.
Stephen, yeah.
I don't know his name.
Yeah, Stephen Hennebury. His mum and dad live along our road.
Mm.
Nice. He's a really nice guy. He was the dame in all the pantomimes at the at Storth. Yeah, he was brilliant. He was really, really good. You know, he could have gone professional easily, but he chose to be. Well, he's had a meteoric rise through Dalham. You know,
he's only quite young, isn't he?
Yeah, he was the maths teacher, then became head of year, and then became head in about 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then he got married to a lady who'd already got one kid, and then they've got one of their own now. So he's got an instant family and a dog. He's not hanging about. So. He's a really nice lad, Stephen.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Don't tell Claire.
No.
Why?
Because she likes a married men.
Oh. Oh, did you see Fake or Fortune the other night?
Oh no, I didn't know there's a new series on. I'll have to look for that. I like.
Yeah, they were researching. It was a big old painting that was. It's been in a church for donkey's years, since the 1800s, and it was of a crucifixion.
Yeah.
They didn't know who it was by or how old it was. But they discovered it was by a Flemish artist who'd studied in Italy.
Right.
And the way they aged it was through dendrochronology on the wooden panel that it was painted on. And they dated it to 1565.
Wow.
And they could tell everything about the tree, the kind of tree and where it was, and it would have had to have been used within a certain amount of time. So they could date it really accurately, which I found that amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is pretty amazing. Yeah. Well, dendrochronology, you can get to within the kind of the season of the year.
Well, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they said it would have had to have been used within quite a short time, so they could date it fairly accurately to 1565.
Yeah, 1565. God, that's cool. Old, isn't it?
Yeah. But I wouldn't have thought they would have been able to use that method on just a wooden panel.
As long as they've got enough tree rings, it's okay. Yeah.
we'll get moving in a minute. I think probably because if we don't, we're not going to get it done. So I'm going to I'm just going to do something.
In Scotland, do they still say "Och I the new"? Do you think?
Oh yes.
Do they? What does it mean?
Oh, I know.
"Och I the new."
It means oh, I know.
Does it? "Och I the new"?
Oh, I. Oh, I.
"Och I," yes.
I know.
Can I give you a really silly fact?
Yeah.
Did you know the in the first season of Star Trek, if you look in the background, the lots of the female staff wore miniskirts.
Yeah.
Right. Now, years later, in lots of the other Star Trek spin-offs, if you look in the background, the men start to wear dresses.
Honestly,
I didn't know that. No.
Because they're trying to give an air of inclusivity. So the men are sort of, yeah. If you look, it was a really weird thing I was listening to on the radio today, and it was I thought that was interesting. A lot, Roger. Just because I'm good at playing transvestites, right? They don't have to be reminded of me having that wonderful role as Dorothy in Casualty, which I'm always reminded of. Yeah. Do you know what? Right? Do you know what? Right? I do a major Hollywood film, right? And on my death, you know, it'll be right in the newspapers. They'll say, played the part of Dorothy on Casualty. That's what I'll always be remembered for.
Absolutely.
You're going to shape, you know, with a bit up here and a bit down there.
Right, I'm going to crack on. Have you noticed he's been talking about knickers, suspender belts, and let's just move on. Right. Okay. Roger, do you want to just transfer to Wednesday because you'll get on really well with Anne?
Well, my old friend Anne, lovely girl.
Yeah. Lovely. Right. Okay. I gotta make sure I keep this in order. Right. We've got to do the access analysis stuff tonight. We've got to do it. So what I'll do the Roman stuff. And we're going to jump into the access analysis stuff as soon as we can. Right. Oh, there it is. The bowl. Now,
What's that for?
Oh, the you know the little bits of glass I showed you a little while ago, right? Yeah. Well, that is actually a glass cup. That's actually glass, right? That they found in Denmark. That's actually on display in the Copenhagen Museum, right? And the point is, they found evidence of exactly similar cup to that found. That's what these belong to. And these are what they've actually found the scat nest. That is the point. That's why I showed you that image, right? So back again, there it is. This glad. So we've got this object found, remains of this object found at Scatness, right? How did something intact like that end up in Scatness? But loads of other glass objects have ended up in Scatness. Right, anyway, right, that's that point made. So the other point I'd like to do is this, right? Now, this is just giving you a little bit of an idea that they found various Roman objects. These don't by far show you all the Roman objects, right? But you can clearly see there's a guide at the bottom there of some of the glass objects that have been found there, the penannular Roman type brooch, the Roman fibula. Greyware is a type of pottery right? So they've actually found greyware, pottery, trading items, and so on. So these are some of the items. These are some of the items that have been found at Scatness. A plan of where some of these items, and they're spread fairly over the site, right? These are just some of the items, right? So these are not this building over here, which is building 12, and obviously building 8 is where some more of the Roman items have been found, right? But this just gives you a bit of an idea, right? So if we go back to, oh God, I've lost my flow, right? Back to meeting, right? And if we go back to there, get me back to the screen, and bingo, right? Okay, back to this. Right, so basically this is the text.
Oh.
Okay, this is actually the text from the book. It basically says, a discussion of the Roman artifacts from Old Scatness. As a matter of policy, the Roman Empire traded and forged alliances. That's a good start. Spreading its influence far outside the imperial boundaries. That gives us some answers. Within Scotland, 3 substantial published surveys, and it's talking about, surveys have recorded numerous Roman objects, right? Such evidence of Roman influence is found in Brock's. There we go. Evidence of Roman material in Brock's and influence. Does that mean how these things are being constructed? Wheelhouses throughout the Atlantic, Scotland. So what we're talking about, the northern part of Scotland, Orkney, Shetland, the northeastern part of Scotland, Caithness. Although this region was never subject to direct Roman rule, right? So in other words, it was not sort of, it was not classed as being part of the Roman civil, rule, but there's lots of artifacts nevertheless, and exhibits no historically defined break in the settlement sequence. So what we're talking about, there are lots of Roman objects, but did the Romans actually influence how these people built? And the answer is, from what we can work out, no. But there you go. But if any process resembling trade occurred, it would likely be embedded in society, with every transaction expressing some type of social relationship. So what we're talking about that is that it is taken for granted that Rome was there, and we've got materials going back and forth. And what that doesn't say in any of that first paragraph, it doesn't actually say what are these people in Scotland giving the Romans, because they're not just going to say, right, here's a glass bowl. By the way, Rog, keep the glass bowl. It's fine. Don't worry. We'll just go home. We're not even going to have any food or any drink coffee. We'll just go home. We'll bring you another glass bowl next week. In reality, that's not going to happen. These people are going to want to trade, right? So you go. 40% of excavated North British Iron Age sites contain Roman artifacts. 40%, right? So 40% of archaeological sites that have been excavated from the Iron Age in the north have got Roman artifacts on them. So these Iron Age sites that are in the Iron Age, they're not touched by Rome. They've still got these artifacts there, right? In other words, they've still got these bottles of Coca-Cola that we find all the way across the world, even though the Americans may never have been there, right? So Roman material culture must therefore have been accepted and acceptable to many, if not most, Iron Age societies. So in other words, Rome wasn't over there, it was here, right? It is not easy to determine the significance of these objects. Sharples, who's a big prehistoric writer, notes the appearance of Roman material culture during the late Middle Iron Age, at a time when the Brocks are no longer the significant focal point of the settlement. It's saying that we've got artifacts. So what we're seeing is that somewhere when Brocks are being abandoned, or maybe in the later stages, you get this material coming in, right? Whatever that means. So Roman glass, metal, and pottery were recovered at Old Scatness. it is essential to date the context in which Roman material was found, since it cannot now safely be assumed that Roman wheel-thrown pottery, glass, or metalwork must have reached the site before the end of the Roman period in Britain. So in other words, what we're talking about, before the late 400s, we've definitely got this Roman material in Scotland at these sites. We are AD 100, right? The suggestions that Roman material circulated much later than the Roman Iron Age. For example, it's saying that maybe some of this stuff is just, curios, but I don't agree with that. It says that, there it is, that proves what I just said. And the well-dated stratigraphy at Old Scatness proves additional evidence against this hypothesis. So they weren't curios. They were major objects. They meant something to the people. They weren't just things like a bit of glass. These are proper glass balls. These ended up with these people, right? So the major obstacle to understanding Roman material culture throughout Atlantic Scotland is the rarity of attended burials. So what we mean is that, we're finding these objects scattered around the sites rather than burials. Instead, conclusion must be drawn from the domestic debris of settlement sites. For example, Old Scatness Roman objects were recovered from a midden created by evident depositions in the roofless remains of an earlier building. So that's one bit of evidence. So this example illustrates the distribution of artifacts may reflect survival patterns rather than patterns of activity. These objects have survived. They're there for a reason. Moreover, much time may have elapsed between the manufacture of artifacts, their use or reuse, and deposition. So we're not really sure in some instances why they're there, but they're there. That's the point. They're there. These artifacts are there, right? Objects can be found in context of a later date than that the objects themselves, either due to curation by their owners or to residual activity, right? So we're getting these objects there, right? And it goes to say, hang on a minute. It goes on to say that several glass fragments of vessel glass have been recovered. Well, more than several. Several glasses of olive green glass with bubbles were recovered from primarily occupation. There you go. It says a particular interest are the fragments of painted vessel glass. The glass matrix is clear with red or terracotta surface paint. So there's painted glass like the gladiatorial cups that have been found. Cylindrical cups were common Roman drinking vessels and date from the 200s. So again, this glass that would have been intact when it got to the site, glass breaks really easily, and it's unlikely that these things would have been held as curios. They're likely to date from roughly the periods that they're actually made and traded, right? And it keeps going about this. There's actually an illustration that we can actually show you in regards to a broch. And it's talking about, this glass object. You've got at a wheelhouse, which is a site known as Click Himin, which is another broch site where you've got bits of painted glass being found. Is talking about these glass bangles that we've shown you earlier on, really nice decorated glass bangles. Fragments often have round collared ends, possibly intended for attachment to metal. So we got composite objects. Some of these bangle-like objects might be part of metal objects as well. We've got beads there. It's mentioned in the beads. It's saying, several beads have been recovered from this site, which could be from a range of different dates, but they're still at the Scatness site. Whilst it would be desirable to distinguish between these beads made in Britain using a native tradition and those produced in quantity within the Roman Empire, in general, these beads are again, some of the non blue beads could be from various different areas of the Roman Empire. And just going to see. Oh yeah, it's got a conclusion now. We'll read out the conclusion in full. Right. So pottery, you've got wheel turned grey pottery ware that has been found at the site. So the grey pottery. It's talking about the sherd. One of the sherds themselves is a fine grey ware, which again indicates that these objects have got there from somewhere. It not need have travelled far. The manufacture of Roman pottery in northern Britain was extensive. So we've got this one object, other objects found at the site, right? Pottery. There's pottery at Scatness site when they're able to produce pottery themselves. What the hell does that mean? Why do they need Roman pottery when they're actually producing their own pottery? But it's there anyway, right? And it says here, it goes on to say, conclusion. Now, does this agree with everything that I've said? Let's just read this out. Expressed crudely, a dozen Roman artifacts were identified at Old Scatness, more than a dozen. Anyway, the number may be small, but significantly, you've got different classes. The well-dated context and good stratigraphy at Scatness means there is certain that Roman objects arrived during the Iron Age and did not circulate as medieval keepsakes. So they're there for a reason. Material of high quality, this is the point, reached Scatness, but the objects need not have arrived at a single time, traded over a period of time, and may not necessarily have served the function that their manufacturers intended. Well, without intact funerary or votive deposits to study, it remains possible that objects were imported as looted scrap. Well, I'm saying in regards to glass, I disagree with that. Disagreeing with the curiosity value as well. The Roman objects were not necessarily held in awe by a native population. And it goes on to say that any institution or cultural changes at Scatness resulting from Roman contact were part of a longer development trajectory. But inferring such changes from archaeological evidence alone is impossible. The true nature of the relationship between, now this is key, everything that we said, the true nature of the relationship between the site and the Roman Empire is likely to remain elusive, but the exchange of gifts, payment of subsidies, or deliberate encouragement of native rivalries is entirely consistent with Roman behavior towards other Iron Age societies. So in a way, in many ways, the site at Scatness was part of the wider Roman world, whether it was in or outside of the Roman Empire.
Oh.
So what we're going to do now, access analysis. Let's do this. Let's do the last bit of access analysis. And we'll the block thing at the end. So if I can get 20 minutes of access analysis, I'll be very happy. And that'll be end to that. And then more wonderful Iron Age stuff next week. So let's just do the access analysis stuff. Roger, shut up. Have you noticed I love abusing Roger?
What? Make a cup of tea.
What? Who's making a cup of tea? What? Did somebody hear that then?
Yeah, just having a cup of tea, yeah.
Roger, right.
Okay, you hear a slurp.
Roger, I don't really care, okay?
Okay. No matter.
Right, okay. So we're going to have to find this document again. I had it earlier on. Oh, God, this is a pain. God. Right, okay, that's the wrong one. Hang on, wrong doodah. Right, hang on. There, that one. No.
What?
Shut up, Roger. I'm just going to try and find. It's very difficult doing this from an email. Right, okay. Looking at my own personal emails. There we go. Right, so type in dissertation there. Again, it should come up. Dissertation. Right, there. Good. We'll get it in a minute. Right. There. There. Oh, good. We got it. We're on it, Roger. We're there. And I think I found out something interesting earlier on. So if we go like that, see, there you go. It works. Roger, if at first you don't succeed, try again. So what we got is just a reminder, we've got the Scatness site there. And we go down and we look at the site in the ditches. That's the Roman site. And it was a comparison of looking at the archaeology, the archaeological remains in Shetland, comparing it with a site in southern Roman Britain, right? And even as we know now that you've got this Roman stuff at Scatness, significant Roman stuff at Scatness. And the Roman world is almost as if you don't need to look at this site at the ditches, Gloucestershire, north of Cirencester. You don't really need to look at the site because there's a sense of connectivity out there, right? So if we go back to there, and there we go, we got this site, and it clearly says the ditches, which is a site north of Cirencester, right? So we go back to that. This is really working really well. And then we were talking about something called access analysis, right? And this is how you move around these structures, right? How these structures worked and how you communicated around these structures, right? And basically this was an access analysis plan into an Iron Age building, right? So the big question is, are these Iron Age buildings as complex as Roman buildings? So as you move around an Iron Age building, you've got an entrance, you go into communal zone, you go into transitional zone, you go into all these different bits and buildings and stuff, and that looks extremely complex. So you've got loads of different opportunities. Do you go into that room there? Do you go into that room? Or do you go through the corridor and you do this and whatever? Now, Iron Age buildings, right, and the way they're organized, as complex as Roman buildings, or as Roman buildings a little bit more simple? What do we think? Let's have a little look. So there we go. And if we go there and we go down, and let's look at this site at Baggerden, which is our site which is north of Cirencester. And what we're talking about is that looks a little bit more simplified, right? And what we are doing, we're going from the outside, and there's G. G is basically a transitional zone. So you're going down into a corridor area, and you're going to E. And E itself, there's E, it's a transitional zone, right? E on the plan. And E, you can either go H, you can go into the courtyard, or you can go into room F, or you can go into room D. It's more linear, it's more organized, right? And what I mean by more organized, there's more structure to it. Whereas the one at Scatness, you're all over the place. It's because it's a circular structure. And this is a linear structure. This is a square structure, right? And so if we look down and we start to sort of work out the different levels of access into this building, right? And it looks quite sort of simplified, right? This is an access analysis plan.
Oh.
And you know where you're going, right? But the one thing about, let's use the word carrier, the one thing about these Roman buildings, right, is they're more organized and they're more controlled, right? It looks simple, but the very nature is a sense of control, right? Roman buildings were there to display your wealth. Roman buildings were there to channel you into certain areas where you're meant to be. You can't go in it's not an Iron Age building where you can go everywhere, right? Where you've got so many different alternatives where you can go, right? You can go into that room. You can go into that room. Maybe if you go over there, you can go on a corridor. You can go into that room. From that, you can go into this one. This Roman villa is extremely more idealized, and it's pushing you somewhere. So when you think about, when you go back here, it's got levels of access, right? And again, this sort of sense of levels of access, right? Now, if we sort of zoom in, right, and you think of these words, transitional zone and communal zone, right? There's, in effect, D is a communal zone, right? And the transitional zones, if you look at G, E, and H, on there, you've got G, E, and H. These areas, what we talk about access analysis is these areas, it's almost as if they're allowing you to go where they want you to go, right? Because you've got nowhere else to go. So when you go to E, for example, right? If we clear that, when you go to E, you're pushed from G to E, right? So you can either go to the courtyard area, into this room, which is an important room, or room F. But when you go into this room, this is more like a communal zone. This is the room that Rome wants to show you, right? This is Rome's presence. In D, that's where you're going to have a beautiful mosaic on the floor, and that's where you're going to have frescoes on the wall, right? That room's likely to be heated, right? It's a place that the owners of this building want to show off. But if you think about going to look at, hang on, get rid of that. If you do a comparison, right? Go to there. If you do a comparison, and you think about, there we go. Hang on, where are we? Where's that little plan gone? Where's that? Oh, there we go. Right. We need to zoom in on. There we go. Good. Can you see that? The Iron Age people are more practical. They don't really care what you see. They just want you to move around. You've got access into all these areas. They don't care. And you can see that these buildings are more practical. But when you look at Roman buildings, I know this is only one example, right? When you look at Roman buildings, for example, the Romans want you to see what they want you to see, right? They want you to look at the building in the way that they want you to look at the building, right? And this is a simple way of control. You can't control people if it's complexed, like the Iron Age buildings, right? Iron Age buildings, by their very nature, are cluttered and complexed, right? And they're developed for a certain idea, right? To manufacture, to sleep, but it's all there for you, right? Even though in a Roman building, it's all there for you. You're directed into certain bits of the Roman building, right? Now, what happens? There's a change. This is as the Roman building develops, right? Now, what you can clearly see is that if we go back, you can clearly see the first phase of the building, right? Well, it says there, the first phase. It's quite simple, right? And because it's got 4 levels of access, right? But then things get a little bit more complex and a little bit more sinister in a way, right? The Romans just don't add things on for no reason at all. Or if they're going to add something on, there's going to be a direction. There's going to be a specific way that you access it. Iron Age buildings, there doesn't seem to be a way. It's added there because it's practical, right? But the Romans are more controlled, right? So as you move away from that, which is quite straightforward, and what's probably going on here, if I quickly draw this on, you've got this courtyard area here. You've got the main corridor. Hang on, get rid of that. You've got the main corridor area here, right? These transitional zone, right? And whatever this here, this over here is probably a bedroom, right? This is your communal zone where you're served, and you've got places, right? That little sort of, that might be a kitchen area, that's a storeroom, right? But all of these serve this room, right? And then the only way to get to this room here is the only way practically, because it's likely that there's a door which is stopping you getting into this room, right? Which there is, right? You're not going to go directly in there. It's probably not going to work. The best way to get to here is to go through this this sort of carrier zone, right? And transitional zone this way, right? Now things then change. This again, access analysis, and there we go, gamma analysis. Don't even go there. But what we've got is that this gets really this gets more. The Romans decide to change their approach, and you can clearly see here that things are changed. Now, as the building develops over time, again, this is all in the same time frame as the site of Scatness in Scotland. We got the round buildings, right? So this is probably roughly at the time that the buildings at Scatness, you've got building 12 and you've got building 8, and the building 8 you've got the industrial building, right? This is developed as well. So you've got now G, I, E, and H. So you've got the transitional zones G, I, E, and H. So what's really happened is the Romans have extended their property, right? They've extended their property, and again, what they need to do is, as you enter the property, you've now got options. You can either go into F's been opened up. You can go to D. D's been opened up, and A's been opened up. There's different ways of accessing this building, but again, it's controlled by I, because you cannot get to I without going through G, right? But in a way, as Roman civilization moves on, and this gets a bigger Roman villa type site, right? They want you to go to A. They want you to get more access to A and D and F, right? So the minds of these people have changed, right? But again, it's still controlled. It is still a sense of that you just can't go anywhere, right? And the other thing as well is you can't go anywhere because A's got a door on it, D's got a door on it, F's got a door on it, E's got a door on it. To get into I, there's a door on it. To get from E to H, there's a door on it. A, and you know what I mean, right? With Scatness, right? How many doors have you got at Scatness, right? This is a really interesting question. So if you want to get really complex, if you want to think about control and access and openness, right? This Roman building, I haven't really counted this up, but this Roman building has got, hang on, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, at least 12 doors, right? Each of these are controlled bits of the structure, right? So if you want to go, so 12 doors, right? The Romans loved doors, right? They did. They love gateways and all sorts of things, right? So what we then do, if we go back out there, we go back in, and we go there, and we do that. And if we look at, remember 12 doors, Roman site, right? Even though this site has got really complex, right? How many doors have you got in that? You've got one at the entrance. there's no entrance, there's no door between C2 and 5 because it's too wide, right? So you've got one door, and you've got a door from number 7 to the exit. That's 2 doors. You've got blocked up doorways in this as well, so they don't count. And you've got a doorway, probably a door, or maybe it's likely that it's an open doorway between 10 and 11. So for the sake of argument, they've got 3 doors, right? So can you see the point we're making? Can you see the way access analysis works, right? Suddenly what you're seeing is that Iron Age people are very open, even though it looks very complex, right? Iron Age people are very open in their plan, in their, you can go to these places. Even though there's a way of going into this building, there's a way of access, right? You've got 3 doorways, right? And actually, 2 of those doorways are outside, right? 2 of those doorways are to the outside, and there might not even be an internal doorway, right? But if you go to the Roman site, for example, right? If you go to the Roman site, look how many doorways there are into this Roman site. It's a massive sense of control. It's the Romans have got a control buzz, and again, the difference between Iron Age people is they're more open, and Roman people are more controlled and are more I'm not going to say structured, but they've got a certain sense of etiquette. This isn't a downer, but the Iron Age people don't need etiquette, but the Romans did, because it's the way they lived. Right. So finally, on this access analysis set, the levels of access, even though the levels of access are relatively not changed from the earlier plan, the access in the individual rooms is very tight, right? And again, moving around a Roman site, you for example, if you looking at this building, and you go, for example, from G to I, you get from the entrance G to I, right? And with all of them having doors on, you can't go anywhere else. You're stopped in your tracks. Whereas an Iron Age home, you can keep moving around because there's nothing stopping you. And this is really important. This is why we do access analysis. This is why we study the way these buildings work and operate. And in fact, this is how modern architects work today, right? And the words that we use, open plan building, which is an Iron Age building, and an enclosed plan building, which is a Roman type building. And this is something that architects use today, and it's something that was very much something that we can actually see with past civilizations, with a certain model. We model the past. To model the past is to try and understand the past a little bit more clearly, and this is what we've done with access analysis. So I completed my, obviously there you go. This is the way. It's basically, that's called a gamma analysis map, right? And you know, it looks, you should actually, at the back there, you could have probably had, you may have actually had access into there. But the way gamma works, the gamma analysis, you don't need to add up all the little processes. The main place to be in this building, right, at this stage, right, is if you get to this bit of the building, you've got there's a way into 4 areas. There's 4 doors, right? But this is the room that in lots of Roman buildings, this is the room you need to be in. When you go into a Roman building, for example, you might go into, if I draw this, get rid of that. You might, in a Roman building, you might actually have a doorway, right? And what's in front of you is the most important bit of the building. As you go in through the porch, that's the most important bit. right? On our building, this is the most important bit of the building, but it's likely that this is very important as well. And have you just seen something that is blatantly obvious about what I've seen? How archaeologists find things on an archaeological site, particularly with Roman sites, is to work out how a building worked. And if you can work out how a building worked, you're going to know where the best stuff is. So you're going to work out there's probably really nice mosaics there, really nice mosaics there. It's likely that the frescoes are really painted well there. And it might be unlikely that that's as well adorned. And that might not be well adorned either. So this is, by looking at these charts, by understanding these charts, you can understand how a building worked. And then in turn, you can understand how people from the past worked. And that's why access analysis is important. And that's why I wanted to share that with you today and bring it to some kind of a conclusion, right? So what we're going to do now, we're just going to ask that question. We're going to go through everybody, right? And we're going to go back to Baldrick, my turkey. What I might do is send David a postcard from Baldrick. I think he might like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask you all in turn, and then we're going to do questions at the end. And as we mentioned, David and my turkey, right? We're going to start off with David. Right. Whatever David says now, you can't repeat what David says over what you feel these buildings are about. Right. So David, what do you think? Why did they build these buildings in the Iron Age? Why, David? Tell us.
Village to retreat into, the same as 45 farms round here.
That's a very, very good one. All the tower buildings to retreat to, right? That's a really interesting thing. So you're going to stick to that now, right? So when we do this building and we analyze it at the end, I'm going to say, you still think that, right? That's David's bit, right? Next, Andy. You can't say the same thing.
No, I won't say the same thing. I think it's more climatic and possible passive heating.
Like a cooling tower type effect.
Yeah,
yes.
But because you have the heat from within and the warmth created by warming up the building, and the double skins.
Yes. And yes, that's really good. Like a cooling tower type of effect. Yeah. But except it's the other way around.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Right. Again, Margaret, you can't repeat any of this, right? So remember, David, something to retreat to. Andy, warmth. That makes it basic. Right, next, Margaret.
Well, they're usually built on farming or grazing land. So I'm thinking there's some connection there, maybe like a modern day silo where they stored wheat or grain of some kind.
And that would tie in nicely with, in a way, that sort of ties in a little bit with David, that you've got a place to go to with grain if you need to retreat.
A grain store.
Yeah, and Andy's bit that this is quite a dry place where grain's not going to go off. That's really nice. It's getting harder, right? Drina, before it gets rock hard, right? Drina, let's come up with your bit. This is an idea how they looked like inside, not that they did look like this. So go on, Drina.
Oh, I was going to say a lookout. If you climb to the top,
and these would be, these would be quite towering. And when you do, any of you do study that there, which might support the roof, is known as a scassment layer. Right, so you got like a lookout. That's quite simple. That's a throwaway one. That's really good. Okay, it's like Chinese whispers. I've got two of you to ask now. Right, Roger, babes.
Storm shelter.
Oh, right, that nobody's mentioned that. So we right. So okay, to retreat to, a place which is warm, a grain storage.
He said if he's safe out the way.
Lookout. And what did you say, Rog?
especially in the winter time when you can't get the food and you might get more storms, trouble. You need something secure to keep all that safe out the way of the storm, foul winds and stuff that you might have had, like we do now.
Actually, nobody's mentioned that either. Yeah, Roger, you said at the beginning, right? Judith, you're last in a sec. One of you said earlier on, oh, you wouldn't like to be living on top of a hill where I am, right? Which we've had winds, we've had really howling winds, but the building that we've got here has managed to stay up so far, which is great, with not a single leak and all the rest of it, right? But I would say one experience that might lead to this, right? It can be howling outside, right? It can be raining and chucking it down and everything's getting flooded, but we don't hear a thing most of the time. That might tie in with something that Roger said. And Judith, you're last. Give it to us.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh, go for it.
Right, I'm thinking fresh water, because there was a thing called the Roman warm period, wasn't there? So the weather there might not have been like it is now. They might have not had harsh winters and big storms and things. So is there any other fresh water on the island? Is there like a river or a freshwater spring or anything?
In lots of brocks, we actually find that there's a spring or there's a water source actually within them, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure in both Scatness that we've actually got a well, or a water source in the building. I don't think we've got anything at Musa. However, there's no reason why you can't store water in these buildings. Our water is going to be very important.
Yeah, and I've noticed if there's a very flat landscape, anything tall will attract clouds and rain, won't it? So I wonder if it was like a rain machine. You know what I mean?
Actually, you've got a good point there. These would be easily hit by lightning as well.
Well,
They would be, wouldn't they? They really, really would be. They would be. So what I'm going to do, I want you to all remember this is recorded, so we can come back to it. So I'll just remind you all, and then we'll do questions, and then I'll be it. So basically, David is sanctuary. Andy is the fact that this is going to be a warm place. Drina is a lookout thing. Oh God, grain storage, stored water, and a good place to go to in the winter. Is that a good assessment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Now keep all of those things, and when we do the Brock and Musa, you can either say, "Oh, I don't think that anymore." Right. So we'll leave that there for now. So quick questions. Right, David, is there anything you want to say?
No, thank you.
Okay, good. Okay, that's fine. Anyway, thanks for joining us, David.
Yeah.
Right, Margaret. Oh, right, you're off now. Okay, then. Night, David.
Good night, David.
Night.
Night, David. It's good to see you well again, David. Good.
Thank you.
Yep.
He sounds wonderful tonight. A clear voice. Love it. Right, okay then. Yeah, he did sound really clear. I don't know. It's almost as if he's, I don't know. He sounded. That's the clearest I've heard in ages. Maybe he's got a new microphone. Right, Andy.
I find it quite interesting that the the doors, which might be security, as in the Romans felt safer having more doors and things than because they seem to have. I always think of them as the people that introduced the back door. So I don't know whether that's because they could sneak out or whether they felt comfortable. But also the concept, I hadn't even thought about it until you brought it up today, is that they like to show off in a probably. I can't imagine the other people didn't want to show off, but must have done it in a different way. That they controlled, the Romans controlled the way that you came into the building to see certain things, whereas maybe the others. I'm really intrigued by the others. I mean, they must have had things they wanted you to see and that were precious to them and their culture as well. So they must have, maybe they had them everywhere, and you it was a choice that where you went. I don't know. But you're right, the Romans were far more controlling, but that goes with the way that they controlled, you know, other lands and other peoples, didn't it? Whereas the Iron Age people, whilst they might have feuded amongst each other, clearly, they had no empire building aspirations. So therefore, not the same organization was not important to them, which is clearly shown in the movement within the buildings.
I think you've got a good point. Yeah, the idea the Romans introduced the back door. That's a good one. That's probably true. The Romans didn't introduce steps or anything. We see them with Brochs and so on. But I like the idea of the back door. You don't see a back door in most of the Brochs. But I think that the point I would make is that the concept of being gregarious, being showing off, is a process of Rome, right? Did these people right? Okay. Some people celebrate. Most people in Britain celebrate Christmas. Other people don't, right? So maybe the people who celebrate Christmas are the Romans in this metaphor, and the people who don't celebrate Christmas and get on with their lives are the Iron Age people, because those people who don't celebrate Christmas don't feel that they need to. Is that the same concept of the fact that people who want to show off need to show off, and the people who don't want to show off don't show off? Are we talking about them being the Iron Age people? Is there a point that we need to show off, or is the point that we don't need to show off, right? And it's for example, you should see the state of my car. I don't give a damn, and I got people saying, "Oh my God, Dad, I don't want to go in that car. It looked terrible." But I don't care. And Michelle's constantly saying, "Oh, why didn't you clean your car?" And I think I don't actually care. It gets me from A to B. And the point is, Andy, right? If a building gets you from A to B, who cares what it looks like? So I think the point is are we judging past standards on what we're thinking? Yeah. Or is there just a genuine that these people just got on with their lives in the Iron Age? The Iron Age people in Britain have still got that old mindset that, you know, somebody passes away, right? And then, you know, if you're gonna mourn them, you've got the burial chamber there, or you've got the causewayed enclosure, and you've got the skull displayed on a post or something, and that's your way of mourning them. Actually, with me, right, I'm different. I'm going to say it, I'm different from you guys, and the reason why I'm different from you guys is that I can remember last year we buried 40 animals, right? Most of you are not going to bury a single animal or anything in a whole year or 2 years. If you haven't got any pets, you don't know what I'm talking about, right? But if you've got a single pet and it dies, you're going to mourn it, right? I don't have time to mourn any animals. I'm going to say it, right? Okay, I dread the day that my beautiful Baldric passes away, right? He's not going to last forever. But am I going to, I'm thinking, I'll take a whole day off, and, you know, I'm going to hold him in my arms, and I'm going to bury him, and I'm going to be really upset. However, is the reality, is that what I'm going to actually do? You know, you know, am I going to have time to do that? And no, I'm not going to have time to do that. I'm really not, you know, because all my other animals, I haven't got time to mourn them or deal with them. I've just got to bury them, and they're over there, right? And I think this is the same when we look and compare two civilizations. Andy, when you've got a gregarious society, right, and you've got people serving you, you've got time to show off. But if you don't have that society, when you just got to get on with your lives. I've got to get on with my life, and so have you, Andy, right? We don't have time to show off, and maybe none of us in this group have time to show off, but maybe one of you has a show house. I don't know that. And what we need to do, we need to put that into the analysis. But I think the overall thing with an Iron Age building, right, it was not the same as a Roman building, and hopefully I've demonstrated that a little bit. Anything else, Andy?
No, that's great, thanks.
Right, Roger.
The interesting with the Broch, going back to that access analysis briefly, I'm not sure how much use it is. It doesn't give a rating or anything particular. You can't see off a diagram of the layout, but that's a particular thing. I don't know what other people think. But it's been done as a neat little theory, sort of semi-mathematical theory, with names in it and different things. But what use is it, apart from a sort of a look at a building with some new way to classify it? That's what I feel with that. The Brocks, I'm amazed how they came to build them. Still taken aback by that.
Yeah. So I think the access analysis stuff is what is that trying to understand how this works and basically, in a nutshell, Iron Age buildings, even though they were extremely complex, right? There was a simplicity in the fact that there's not much controlling you from where you're going. The building, a Roman building, is might look simple, but the way you were controlled and you moved around is extremely Roman and menacing, and that there's a formula to it. That's the point, Roger.
Okay.
So right, Fraggle.
No, I've got nothing else to say, thank you. But our house is more like a Roman house than a circular block.
Right, yeah. So basically, your husband's locked in the bedroom because you've got a door. You see what you just did there? Excellent.
You go through the front door and you go through it into a central hall, and then all the rooms are off the central hall, aren't they, with a door to each one?
Yeah, up the stairs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is Roger, that is something else as well. That is something else. I'm not trying to convince you of any of this, but I think when you add stairs to buildings, something else changes, right? Your access to a building and how you perceive a building changes. And this is also what architects have to decide whether, right, that stairs, where's it going to go? If you're going to have the bathroom and toilet downstairs and your bedroom's downstairs, what is actually upstairs? Is there a point to having an upstairs? You know, those are all the questions that we ask today, and those are all the questions that people asked in the past. Or does something else happen upstairs that's where your office is and that's where you work, right? You know. Anyway, Margaret.
Well, when I come into my home or go to anybody else's home, I've always got stuff. I've always got a bag for various reasons. And I'm thinking back then, they probably took a bag with them when they were going out or when they were going back home or to somebody else's house. They were carrying things. So the most important first room would be somewhere to put your stuff.
Blow me. Yeah, you've just actually caught upon something, right? If an Iron Age person's got a basket and 5 people are visiting the house, right? Where do they put all their stuff?
They put it in the first room that you enter.
Yeah,
maybe it would be the kitchen or some kind of ancillary room.
But if it's one big room, where are you going to put everything?
Well, they would have had shelves and maybe hooks to hang things. Would people have worn a cloak if it was raining? So they would have had, like we have a hallway, a cloakroom, somewhere to hang your coat and put your bag. They would have had the same then. They would have had coats and bags, wouldn't they?
Do you know when we're on set, right? We've got a green room, right, and we usually we've got a chair and usually got a table. All our stuff is dumped in front of us on that table, right? It's just left there, right? And then we're going to leave. All that stuff goes off that bit, and then we go. There's no place that we put all our bags. It's not school.
No.
Right. But I see your point. I see your point as a valuable point. Where do you put all this stuff? And that is a valuable point overall. Where you know, this is something that we've never discussed. How do you deal with your stuff, right? We don't think about that. You enter a building and you sit down, but
no, you don't. No,
no, you don't. You've got to close it.
The very last thing you do is sit down in comfort.
Yes.
That's the very last thing that you do.
If you've got a cloak and you've got a fire in the middle, right? The last thing you want is 10 people huddled around a fire with cloaks on, and one of the cloaks goes up in flames, right? You're going to hang the cloaks up.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that bit. See, Roger, you do get something out of these things after all. Even though Roger was fixated on various weird things tonight. Drina!
I was thinking if the Romans are showing off, they consider what they have as precious. So they're going to want to control who goes into the room. So
And
they
who
have
sees it?
us. And the other, the Brock. It struck me that they must do a lot of movement, and the doors would constrict any movement.
Yeah.
So, and maybe more people moving around. So you'd get constricted with doors again.
And Roger, right? Roger, actually, that is a good point. Andrina, that's a good point. By a lack of doors, it means that the buildings are seeing more use because doors are constricted, right? Yeah, that is, by having loads of doors means that there's less movement, right?
Yeah.
That is a good point. Very good point. It's open because there's a lot of movement. It's closed because there's less movement. And yes, that is a very, very good point. So how many people are using these villas compared to these Iron Age buildings, you know? Yeah, very, 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 that's a really powerful point. Yeah, exactly.
Not all the Roman internal doorways had doors, though, did they?
No, but we obviously, you have a very good point. Obviously, I may have exaggerated what I said earlier on, but even if 12 becomes 6, it's still
definitely
twice the amount that you've got in an Iron Age building. And if there's only 2 actual doors that close in an Iron Age building, and there's 6 in a Roman building, that's still 3 times more.
Is there a cultural thing going on here, bearing in mind the management of Rome came from a warmer climate?
Yes,
and therefore it's not so necessary to keep you warmer by having less doors. They can have more doors.
The doors would keep heat out.
No, but
yeah, I know. Yeah,
they can also keep it in, can't they, as well?
Yeah.
You know, you look at any of the like the Viking longhouses have got little tiny doorways and long passageways to get into them because to keep the heat in the house.
Yeah.
Whereas the Romans coming from Italy, shall we say, stereotyping, because obviously it's considerably warmer, you know, and therefore it doesn't matter. You can have a bigger doorway, you know, and more of them. And maybe it was a good idea to have 2 because you get a through draft to keep you cool, whereas we want to keep warm.
So all the heat,
A central fire would keep the Brock warm.
Yeah.
In all of it.
Yeah.
And if you shut doors on it, it's not going to, is it?
No, that will stop it drawing. Yeah. Mind you, they had, they did have drains that I'm sure they probably worked out.
Yeah.
They could have drains that could have flues as well. But yeah, that is a good point, though.
Yeah, we got evidence at the one at room building 8 that we've got underground draw systems for the hearth and so on. So they had this technology, but obviously, that's a good point. The control of
for ironworking, you would have to have a good source of air, wouldn't you? Because you've got to be able to draw it in and build the heat up.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's very, very true. Very true. No, it's all very useful stuff. Okay. Anybody else want to say anything else tonight?
No, I'm packing now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a long one tonight. We've said a lot,
we-
and so on till next week. And anyway, thanks for your
Well-
continued support and all the monies and stuff through and for the next 2 months. And if there's
Yeah.
nobody else wants to say anything else, I'm going to say thank you very much. Good night,
Well,
Andy,
thanks.
Margaret, Trina, Roger, and Judith, and anyone else who's watching. And hopefully we'll have Anne back next week as well.
Yeah.
Good.
Good night, all.
Cheers.
Thanks,
Bye.
Carl.
Bye.
Very interesting.
Bye.
Thanks.
Nasta,
Bye-bye.
diolch yn fawr chi, Nasta. No, night, Judy. Oh, Fraggle.
Bye.
Down a Fraggle Rock. No, night. Night. Okay. Thank you very much for watching tonight. And yeah, I'm going to yeah, a bit tired actually. I've got to heat something up now. I don't think I'll eat that. Do I want a piece of bread actually, I think. Anyway, don't forget to like and subscribe, and onwards and upwards. Any topics people want me to on my general class, my general recordings, please let me know. I might change direction tomorrow. Keep doing the OCD thing and acting, but I'm gonna change to something else with the other daily. So we got Rogie, Dreary, and John. That's in the chat box. That's what's in there. Again, like and subscribe. Thank you for your support. So again, Rogie, oh, Rogie, that is Rogie's Roger. Dreary is Drina. Rogie, Dreary. It's not the same, is it, Drina? And John, I don't know who John is. Dun 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 dun. Rogie, Dreary, John. Dun, 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 dun.